You're listening to For the Republic, a love letter to Star Wars animation.
Hello there. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our recaps of The Mandalorian here on For the Republic podcast. I am your host for this week, Donovan. I'm joined as always by Conor, and for this week we have a special guest coming on. You may know her from the Geeky Waffle podcast or her many awesome musical covers on TikTok and Instagram, and just maybe the odd Ted Becker tweet or two on Twitter. It's Noor-Hal. Hi Noor-Hal.
Hello. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Hello there. How are you doing?
We're doing very great. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on this week to talk Mando with us. So normally what happens is, so as you can tell, basically, by my voice coming in here, our co-host normally, our main host, sorry, you can tell this is my first time. I'm tripping over everything.
Great.
Andrew
Thank
is
you so much. Andrew
he's got
is
some
occupied.
stuff going on.
Our
so
usual
he's going to
host,
record
a mini review.
Perfect.
A mini review.
Which will be posted
like
later in this episode.
His
somewhere.
dad last minute surprised him with some Bruce Springsteen tickets, so he regrettably could not be here with us. Yeah, he could not be with us here tonight, but he's going to be with us in full spirit. As Conor said, he's going to record a mini review for us. So Andrew, take it away. What did you think of this chapter of The Mandalorian, Chapter 20, The Foundling?
Hello, For the Republic listeners. Andrew here. I am so upset that I could not be there with the rest of the panel this week. Some things came up last minute that I really could not say no to, but I still wanted to give my quick thoughts on this week's Mandalorian episode because I have not missed one of our Mando recaps yet, or any recaps yet, to be completely honest. So this is a bit different. But let's talk about the Foundling real quick. I thought this episode was a really fun one. I described this on Twitter as the most playing with your action figures and creating your story type of energy episode of Mando that we've seen so far. And that can be used as both a positive and a negative in certain senses. With this episode, I think it was a good thing, though, because yes, it did feel like we're going to have a bunch of Mandalorians go on this side quest to save this Mandalorian's other son from these giant pterodactyl creatures, and then we have some really cool stuff with Grogu and Bo-Katan. So all that stuff, yeah, it's fun, it's wacky, it's Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni kind of playing in the Star Wars sandbox, which I loved. But it was fun, and we got to see more details on Bo-Katan's slow integration into the Children of the Watch. Is she going to stay there? Are they going to do what we thought and break free from the cult and get rid of the no-helmet rule? Because they are kind of sending mixed signals. Like, sometimes we're supposed to think that the armor and the watch are not the way that a Mandalorian should be living. It should be free. They should be taking different aspects of all of the ways of the Mandalore. Some of Bo-Katan's and Sabine's aspects. And then some of the stuff that Din holds dear to his heart. It's just, I can't tell the narrative that they're going there. But I love seeing how much seeing the Mythosaur has affected Bo-Katan and kind of changed several things about her, especially which is symbolized at the end of the episode when she replaces her one missing shoulder pad with the Mythosaur emblem. I thought that was really nice and just showed a lot of great moments. The armor here was great in the episode, not only with Bo-Katan, but also with Grogu, because the Grogu stuff was the highlight of the episode for me. I loved while the armor was forging her Grogu's new armor, we got to see glimpses of Grogu's past, very similar to what happened with Din in Season 1. We got to see those flashbacks of him being cornered by that B-2 battle droid, and then the Mandalorian covert coming in and saving him, and that's how he was integrated into the Watch. We get that with Grogu, and we get to see more into who saved him from the Jedi Temple, how he got out of Order 66 and got off Coruscant. We finally got the answer we were looking for, and it is none other than Kelleran Beq. Ahmed Best has a role in Star Wars. Once again, a beautiful, triumphant return to Star Wars, of course, brought Jar Jar Binks to life, and all of the hostility that the fan base gave him from the role, him, Jake Lloyd. So many actors have just been treated so terribly by the Star Wars fandom in the general public, and we all know the stories of Ahmed Best, and just the great upswing and the great story that he's had in recent years. I was there at Celebration 2019 when he was welcomed back for that 20th anniversary panel for Phantom Menace. The standing ovation he got was beautiful, and it was just a great moment. You know, a lot of us probably have a mixed history of Jar Jar Binks as a character, but my admiration for Ahmed Best as a man, as a performer, has just gone way up in recent years since he shared more of his stories. So to see how much he's been welcomed back has been so heartwarming. Getting Jedi Temple challenged during the really early COVID days where we were all just looking for something to smile towards was a great treat. Ahmed Best clearly loved being a part of that, loved crafting this character, and getting to see Kelleran Beq, the saber in hand, dual-wielding sabers, saving Grogu, speeding through Coruscant to get away from those clone troopers, was just such a great moment. Touched with a lot of prequel nostalgia. We got to see Padme's ship be the one that Beq and the Senate guards leave off of Coruscant to save Grogu. We, of course, got to see Tamara Morrison come back to voice all the clone troopers. It felt straight out of Revenge of the Sith, and I think we were all wondering what the choice would be for who saved Grogu. Is it going to be Barriss? Is it going to be the Bad Batch? Is it going to be Quinlan Vos? We heard so many different guesses, and some of us were thinking, are we going to get another Hayden appearance here because maybe they're just reusing footage they shot for Kenobi? But for it to be Kelleran Beq, I am in love with Carl Weathers for making this decision. I think it works so well, and the fact that he saved the galaxy, he's one of the most important Jedi in the new canon at this point in the timeline. I love it. I hope we get to see more of Kelleran in the future. This is my favorite thing in the world. I am so happy for Ahmed Best. No one deserves this more, and I am in love with the choice to have Kelleran Beq be the one that saved Grogu. But the mission with Bo-Katan leading the charge to save Paz Vizsla's son from those giant pterodactyl creatures was a nice, fun one. Getting them bringing back the baby creatures as new foundlings was really cute, and it was just a fun episode. Like I said, it felt like a story you'd come up with when you were a kid playing with your Star Wars figures, but it also got that added bonus of being an incredible Grogu and Bo-Katan story on top of it. So I enjoyed the episode. I don't know if it was my favorite of the season, but I loved what Carl Weathers did with this episode and what he did with Grogu's backstory, because now when you think of Grogu, you're going to think of Kelleran Beq, and I just think that's a wonderful thing. So I hope you guys have a great time with this episode. I cannot wait to watch it back, and I am fully confident that Don and Conor can definitely handle things in my absence. Say hi to Noor-Hal for me. Hope that you come back on the show soon so we can meet proper. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week. This is the way. Take it over, guys.
All right. Thank you very much, Andrew. You're very much missed here, buddy. We hope to see you next week for when we do chapter 21 of Mando. So normally what happens here, Noor-Hal, when we have a new guest on is Andrew will ask them what their earliest memory of Star Wars is, how their Star Wars journey started, basically. So how was that for you? What got you into Star Wars? What was your earliest memory of that?
Well, again, thank you so much for having me. And I think my earliest memory, and I got into Star Wars, just to be honest, like a month before The Force Awakens was released. But if I have to be honest, my earliest memory was playing the Episode 1 racer with my cousins in Nintendo N64.
That's
which
so
was
cool.
I remember having notions of the prequels and such, but I wasn't even aware of the original trilogy. Like, you get the general, like, oh, Darth Vader is the bad guy and Luke Skywalker is the hero and whatnot. But I hadn't watched the movies until 2015 when I saw the trailer for The Force Awakens. I loved the race costume, and it was going to be Halloween. And I said, yeah, I love going pop crawling. So I said, that's a hell of a costume. And I wore it. And everyone was like, oh, it's awesome. But you haven't seen Star Wars. What's wrong with you? So I decided, hey, I want to go to see this movie. I have to watch the originals. And I loved them. Like the moment I saw them, I said, oh my God, why did it took me so long? So yes, that was my journey. And since there, it's been a great journey, to be honest.
That's awesome. Like I played so much of episode 1 Racer like when I was a kid on my N64. So like I totally feel you there with that. That was an awesome game for sure. So like obviously we mostly talk Star Wars in here, but as I mentioned with the Ted Bekker thing, we're all like fans of Ted Lasso. Like we've all like we're all keeping up to date on it. So like just to like very quickly, like what's your thoughts on the current season so far?
Well, I have to be honest, I've been loving it, and I've been trying. Normally when I see there's a hiatus like between season 2 and season 3, a lot of course theories and expectations. So I've learned my lesson well since between The Last Jedi, The Rise of Skywalker, and Game of Thrones season 7 and 8. So I came up with the lowest expectations. Like, yeah, I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna enjoy. I love this series. But so far, I've been pleasantly surprised. I think these 2 episodes have been like, this is great. I like the way things are being portrayed, and it might seem like, oh, but wait, Roy and Keely broke up, and Ted is having doubts. But it's interesting to see. I mean, the journey is not linear. You can have to take a step back and then move forward. So I'm enjoying it, to be honest.
Yeah, I was talking with Conor like just before you like joined us behind the scenes. I was talking about just like I really hope that Roy and Keely get back together because I love them both so much. Like Jedi Temple, Brett Goldstein, they're just frequently hilarious on the show. Like everything with Roy Kent is like gold for me. He just has to like grunt and it's hilarious.
I know.
Yep.
And also, like, you know, like spoilers for episode 2, but like they booked Zava. I didn't think they were going to book Zava. That was awesome, especially
I thought he
like,
was going to Chelsea. I really did not think. Like, I knew he wasn't going to West Ham, but like when it was unfolding, I was like, okay, he's going to Chelsea. So at least he's not going to West Ham.
Yeah.
And he sits down and he's like,
and
I'll play for Richmond. And I was like, holy shit.
I know. And this is the funny thing, that I know that it's quote a sports show, but they don't talk a lot about football, to be honest. It's more about kindness and all the different topics. But when I saw Saba, I said, that's a Zlatan Milosevic, this player. And I love how Danny Rojas is pretty much Chicharito, to be honest.
I love Danny Rojas.
Yeah.
Danny Rojas. Football is life.
Football is life. So I love that. Even if you're not a football fan, if you see those details, it's like, yeah, I love that. I got it. Like, I understood the reference, like the Steve Rogers gift. So
it's brilliant. Yeah, for sure. Like, the other thing I will also mention, since I mentioned like Rupert and how much of a dick he was to Rebecca in episode 2.
Rupert
like,
so much.
I hate Rupert. Like, I love
good
the
acting.
He's such a good actor.
Anthony had my respects, but he's awesome.
Yeah. But like, to bring it back to like to bring us full circle to Star Wars, like I actually read an article of like how when they were designing his office at West Ham, they actually took influence from the Emperor's throne room for Return of the Jedi, which I love. That's such a you can so tell with the whole way it's laid out, the black and everything. It's just really cool. Like also the final thing before we go back to Mando, like what are your thoughts about Nate? Where do you think Nate's ending up, man? Because this is just...
I think Nate, and I love that you mentioned that the Palpatine's reference, the parallels, because I think Nate is totally Anakin Skywalker, because you see that deep inside, he was only looking for the approval from Ted. And I mean, it's quite you see his struggle that, of course, he cannot stop being mean with people and even the players. But at the same time, deep inside he's still so insecure, and how contradicting to see him acting mean towards Ted, but Ted being standing up like, yeah, I trust him. He's a great tactical. He's gonna be great, and yeah, it might be that I like to see how the journey is gonna end for him, and I'm positive. I mean, of course, I was when people everyone is so mean again about Nate because he did leak the panic attacks, and yeah, I was like, F you, Nate.
We were all angry. Yeah,
we were all angry because we care about Ted Lasso, but I think seeing from where that comes from, yeah, I'm positive to see him going towards his redemption journey.
I basically agree with everything you just said. Like, we were all angry at Nate when he turned traitor on Ted and like the rest of Richmond, but like hopefully he will get like a redemption of sorts, and we'll see like a fulfillment there, and he can do the metaphorical thing of like chucking Rupert over a walkway.
That
like
would be fantastic.
Not physically, like he would go to jail like for that in real life, but like the metaphorical thing of like standing up to like the ultimate bully, basically, like something he's wanted to do all his life. But yeah, so the brief Ted Lasso tangent is over. Now we shall go to the main event, which is chapter 20 of The Mandalorian, The Foundling, directed by Carl Weathers and co-written by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. So Noor-Hal, just as I asked you about like The Mandalorian, about Ted Lasso, what have been your what's been your thoughts on this current season of The Mandalorian so far, and the series in general, since this is your first time on the show?
Oh no, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I've been trying to be positive and not like neutral. Like sometimes the weight of our own expectations, like, I want this character and that could be good or bad. But for this, I was pleasantly surprised with season 1, of course, like many of us were. And season 2, of course, I have to be honest, I loved the moment Bo-Katan appeared. So, I mean, it was amazing. But seeing it from the change of the journey for Din, Jaren, and for Grogu, and of course, there's a lot of discourse about Boba Fett and such. But season 3, I was saying, lowest expectations. I'm just here for the ride to have fun, and I was pleasantly surprised because I saw that I've been enjoying seeing more of Katie Sackhoff as Bo-Katan. I mean, and having this star billing, which is fantastic.
Yes.
After Pedro Pascal, which is
so cool.
That was a great choice, to be honest.
I love that. Yeah. I totally agree with you. Like, I wanted to come in with this with lowered expectations, not with lowered expectations, but just healthy expectations, because I feel like after Andor,
yes,
because after Andor, thank you so much. After Andor, I feel like there was a lot of like needless panic on Twitter of like, oh, how can we go back to Mando after a season of Andor? And
I can't stand those people. I genuinely can't stand those people.
Same.
Like, oh my God. It's like, oh, Andor is just like destroying everything Star Wars. Okay, great. If you don't like anything else Star Wars, then I don't know, just fuck off.
And what? Just what?
I just don't get it. It's elitism. It's stupid. It's just like, again, I said it. I'm not gonna.
No. I get it. I understand, because this is the thing. I feel like a Star Wars, and it could be any franchise or such, that it's like any product, call it books, comics, animated series, live action movies. They're all like different types of food, right?
Yeah.
And you can have pizza,
Great
you
metaphor.
can have sushi, you can have, and maybe you don't like sushi, but you love pizza, and that's fine. But somebody else is gonna love sushi, and vice versa. So it's like, I really, and I hear from interacting with different fans and people from different places. I wasn't a fan back in the 90s, like in the dark times when there was no Star Wars, when it wasn't cool to be a Star Wars fan. So there was nothing more, like maybe the Heir of the Empire trilogy and such. But those fans are like, oh my God, to think we have so much good stuff and books and comics and series.
Exactly.
I mean, we're spoiled. We're getting spoiled, to be honest.
It's a bit
again,
overwhelming.
Exactly. Like last year we had Obi-Wan and Andor. It's insane. I know it's almost it is that kid in a sweet shop feeling.
I think the reason I kind of don't like it is because like I'm working full time now and I actually have like adult responsibilities, which I kind of hate. So it's like I don't really have time or the motivation to really like consume everything Star Wars, which I hate. But at the same time, it's like I kind of have to at this point.
Exactly, because there's so much good Star Wars as well. Like the quality of a lot of this stuff recently has been amazing. Like High Republic, Obi-Wan, Andor, of course, and this current season of The Mandalorian. Because like those first two episodes, the first episode was very much like a table setting thing, and I kind of feel like the last two episodes have kind of done a similar thing. But like chapter 2 in particular was like incredible. Like you said, like we got to see more of Katie Sackhoff. I love Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan's an amazing character that she's come on such a journey for the last 10 years from animation to live action. And I'll level with you all. I was very worried going in that we were going to get another Daenerys Game of Thrones season 8 type thing with Bo-Katan. But like based on everything I'm seeing so far with her portrayal in this series, particularly, I'm really optimistic about where they're taking her. Like, this is not where I saw her character going at all. Like her straight up joining the Children of the Watch at the end of the last chapter. That was crazy. And like seeing her now try to be a part of this covert, it's pretty fascinating. But we open the episode.
She's for sure. She's for sure. Like still kind of shaky with them based on like the last conversation. We're like,
I absolutely agree.
Like, dude, straight up, the armorer is just someone trying to pull a. How do I describe it? The armorer is I feel like it's someone just trying to do a bit and just gaslight Katie Sackhoff into thinking like, what you saw was actually not real.
I mean, it's like the most condescending use of "this is the way" I have ever heard in the show so far.
I know. She was like, "This is the way."
It's like, I'm trying to tell you, it was real. I literally saw it. It looked me in the eye.
Like if there's that meme of like the sure, Grandma, let's get you to bed.
There you go.
It's Bo-Katan. Like I saw him at real Mythosaur. Sure, Grandma, let's get you to bed. Like,
but I really did though.
Yes, and I have to be honest with you guys. I think what you mentioned that is not what we imagined she was going to be doing. That, call it subvert expectations, but in a healthy way. Like going back to the Daenerys Targaryen, because and I joked that John Favreau was a Dany stan, so he hated, so he's like kind of making it right now. Joking, but no, the thing is that
it'd be funny if it came out to be true.
I know, right? It would be fantastic, but it's interesting to see how a lot of people was like, no, they're gonna fight for Darksaber, like immediately.
That's what I thought. It was in my mind too. Like not really in my mind, but like sort of something along those lines. So when we find out in the first episode she's just done with all of this, I was like, oh, I'm really interested to see where this is going now.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. It's such a departure from like where she was in season 2. Like throughout all of season 2, she's very driven. She's almost on the level of like arrogance of like I am going to take this. The Darksaber is mine. I know what I'm doing here. And then to see her like broken down in series 3, basically,
not doing it.
Yeah, like where she's so disillusioned because she has lost so much, and to see her people just fall apart because of like these outdated customs, essentially. Like, because I know some people are like giving the Night Children of the Watch some stick, which is understandable, because like the whole like you can't take off your helmet thing, that's always been a little dopey. Like, oh yeah, look. But I feel like what's clever about this is that in doing this, they have explicitly drawn a parallel between the Mandalorians and the Jedi.
Yes.
Because just like the Mandalorians have this silly rule about like, oh, we can't take off our helmets because it's not the way. The Jedi also had their rules about attachment, and that went so bad that literally one Jedi burned the whole thing down almost and hunted the rest of them for years. So like I definitely feel like this is what they're going for. Like how I don't think the covert itself is like specifically being set up to be outright condemned, because I feel like this episode was all about like letting us stay with the character, letting us like sit with the characters for at least half of it. There is one segment that a lot of us were like have been waiting for a while, which was of course Grogu flashbacks to Coruscant the night of Order 66, and we found out who saved him, which I'll get to a bit later. But like, I don't know about you guys, I was not expecting the answer of like who saved Grogu.
I would have never even thought of them.
It's absolutely insane, and it made my heart
like there's
swell.
no way. There's no way.
Exactly. So to start off, we open with all of the Mandalorians outside the cave training, like going through their drills, like both the adults and the kids.
Oh yeah,
it's really cool. And given that Carl Weathers is like the director of this, it felt so in keeping since
so Rocky.
So Rocky.
So Creed,
like that.
I need to watch. I need to watch those movies.
They are my blind spot. I've seen bits of them, but I've never watched a full one.
Same.
But we see Grogu is like on his own. Like then Din comes over to him. Like Grogu, we all love the little guy. Din comes over to him. He's seemingly like just playing with a rock, but oh no, it's a bunch of crabs, really. And I kind of felt like Din should have come over and say to him, "Hey, do you remember what happened the last time you played with living things?"
I know, right?
We almost got eaten by space spiders. He's like, "Yeah, but Dad, I can use the Force now. It's good. It's all fine."
I know.
But we get set up with like a sparring match between Grogu and the kid from the Series 3 opener, Ragnar. Who's like, I like that they're like fleshing this kid out, which must, that kid, I think Wesley Kimmel is his name. What an awesome thing to like be playing just a Mandalorian, like a young Mandalorian in the midst of all these like armored warriors. It's just such a cool thing. But like he chooses darts, and he seems a little arrogant because he's like, oh, this is going to be a cakewalk. This almost isn't fair. This is like a little like creature here. Like I'm going to mop the floor with this thing, because he's like, oh, he's too, because there's the thing where Din says, oh, he hasn't taken the creed. He's too young to speak the creed, so he doesn't wear a helmet. And he's like, oh, well, he's too young to fight. One doesn't
speak unless one knows, or whatever
there
the line is, which is very meta.
It's so
very
perfect.
Meta.
Like that is on par. Yeah. I feel like it's going to be on par with This Is the Way.
The fandom.
The fandom, yeah.
Yeah. So like he chooses darts, like these kind of paintball style darts, which felt very kind of like those kind of toys that often come out for like movies where they have the like wrist strap thing and they fire pellets. But he's a little nervous, and then Bo-Katan, just comes over and just like straps the wrist thing on, and she's like, don't worry, my dad was very much the same with me. It just means he's proud of you, which I just like. I love. She's like, we've all joked about her being his space mom now, but she is like literally stepping in front, and she's so nurturing.
I know, and this is the thing that we start the episode, like you said, everyone is like training and such, and she's kind of seeing. So we're seeing it from her perspective, because she's walking around, and then Din takes the kid Grogu to fight, and she goes immediately like, "Isn't he too young to fight?" Like,
yeah,
she's concerned, like, "Hey, he's my baby. And then, like you said, with the training darts, she immediately bends down and starts strapping it. Like, oh my God, that's so mom. Like, she's not a stepmom. She's a mom who steps up. So
absolutely. Like I feel like it's quite safe in saying that we all very much support Dinbo as a ship, for sure. Like, I just love the idea of like these two characters connecting. I'm not usually like what you'd call a shipper, but like this for me, I just really like it, and I just feel like, as these characters like coming together through Grogu, like actually like learning to kind of like show more sensitive sides of themselves it's lovely. Like to see such a nurturing kind of softer side to Bo-Katan, like so expressed so naturally, like with her interaction with Grogu. I just love it. But yeah, he takes a few hits at first, Grogu, with the darts, and it looks like he might just like throw the whole thing in, throw the towel in. But then he gets a little bit of encouragement from Din, from his dad, and before you know it, he just flips over Ragnar and then just like completely bamboozles him, and then like do like three shots and he wins. Just like, you know, like I love that again, his training with Luke. And the encouragement from Din is just all like, it's all like coming together and like paying off. Like we're seeing him just like grow more confident, like, you know, because like he's so much more advanced with the Force now. He can defend himself with it, and he doesn't even get tired, but he's still very nervous about it because he wonders, does this mean? And you almost wonder if like he's thinking, does this mean I'm not Mandalorian if I use the Force? Because other Mandalorians aren't so lucky. But as we know,
Grogu, you're gonna want to hear about the story of Paz Vizsla someday.
Exactly.
I know. Like, bring Fenra to tell the story again.
Yes. Yeah. Well, there are rumors that Kevin the Kid is gonna show up. I really hope so. I did just read a rumor that Genevieve O'Reilly is going to come back as Mon Mothma very briefly for this, which would be so cool, given that we've got all. Like she went through so much pain in Andor, like emotional pain. I just wanted to see her okay and thriving as like the Chancellor. That would be so good.
Yes, that would be fantastic. And yeah, I agree with you with Grogu and his use of the Force. He looks still hesitant, but I love how the positive reinforcement from Din.
Yeah.
But also that, you squeezed your fist, and then Bo-Katan is like, he doesn't know. I love that they all already like Bender like married couples. Like, really, guys, you guys are family already. Come on.
Exactly. Like they should just break away from the Children of the Watch and just like start up their own little tribe of 3. That would be a clan of three.
Yes.
Exactly, clan of 3. Perfect. So now that Grogu has won the duel, it all just seems hunky dory there. But what do you know? Suddenly a giant pterodactyl-like thing flies out of nowhere and snatches up Ragnar and just flies off. It's like
he has the worst luck, that kid Ragnar, because he didn't even finish saying his vow because he's greed because this gator, like giant gator, took him away, and now this is space gator dragon took him away. It's like, what?
It's like you kind of have to wonder, like the Mandalorians, the whole covert, like why would they settle on a planet like this? It doesn't seem like the safest spot. Like I understand the rebels like having to settle on that planet with the creepy spiders in Star Wars Rebels. They didn't really have a lot of options, but like I feel like this covert has a lot healthier options to pick. But yeah, like. So apparently this is not the first time this has happened, which again kind of warrants a question of like, what have you guys been doing to like protect your foundlings? Like, come on, guys.
And they are so fortunate that Bo-Katan has a brain cell because
exactly. She is literally coming in with all the brain cells of like, you know, here I am getting stuff done like the competent badass that I am. So like they're all just like flying after them with jetpacks, and what do you know, they all run out of fuel. But she, of course, because she's the smart one, she flies in with the gauntlet and chases after it, and that's our like ending hook with like I might say a gorgeous shot of like a sunset as the gauntlet streaks after the picture. It's so cool.
That was so The Force Awakens.
Yes,
that shot.
I love that shot from The Force Awakens. I love that they referenced that there. So
I love how it just makes no sense in the movie, but it's just there. I love it.
It's just cool. It just looks good. Yeah, like, you know, why wouldn't you have like that a shot like that in a Star Wars film? So Bo-Katan returns to the covert and outlines a plan to save Ragnar from the creature, and we wind up with a hunting party which comprises Din, Paz Vizsla, Bo, and a few other Mandalorians. So like I kind of feel like we got a real look at some of these other Mandos, and I feel like what's cool about this covert is that despite their being unified around this is the way, like that whole practice, they all are very distinct visually, like to the point where I feel like we can each have like a So like my question to you guys is, did you have like a favorite like background Mando, like a glup shito Mando that like stood out to you? Because I have one.
Oh well, it's hard.
No.
It's hard with it's hard to have a Mandalorian glum shooter with Din Djarin's there. So
yeah, it's like exactly. He looks so cool. Exactly. Like the only one that kind of like stood out to me, I suppose, was the Judge one, just because I love his cape and like the sort of orange color. Yeah, he's really cool. I hope they do a black series
I'm
of him.
still so partial to Mandalorians in animation that like I still just can't get with them in live action for the most part.
Yeah, so yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned that because there's that illustration of Paz Vizsla, and it's the only canon image of him, and he doesn't have his face isn't covered. So it's so fascinating that this potentially mythic figure in Mandalorian culture doesn't have his face covered. That he basically could buck the whole trend of this so-called ancient rule that the Armorer and her covert are following. So they all take off after the creature, but Grogu is too young, in the Armorer's words, to hunt. So he accompanies her back into her forge area. Yeah, exactly.
He's too old to begin the training.
And again, I feel like we're getting a subversion here of like what to expect with the Armorer, because just like with Bo-Katan, her character is there is stuff they're doing with the Armorer that I just was not expecting. They kind of set her up as like a ideological foil to Bo in the Book of Boba Fett when in the Return of the Mandalorian, but she seems a lot more open to accepting people despite the sort of cult-like mentality that the covert has, where she's welcoming to Grogu. She treats Grogu as a foundling, as a Mandalorian, despite the fact that he is part of what she once called a group of a race of enemy sorcerers. And she's also very welcoming to Bo-Katan. She doesn't have any judgments against her, seemingly, despite the somewhat condescending way she just sort of humors her about the Mythosaur at the end. Like she seems like, oh yeah, we'll take you in. You know, if you bathed in the living waters, yeah, we'll have you. Just don't take that helmet off. But she starts making a new piece of armor for Grogu using leftover Beskar, which was just so lovely. Like, I just feel like, are we gonna get like a new piece of armor for Grogu every season? Like, we got the vest before, the mithril like vest, and now we've got the rondelle, the logo. I'm kind of worried that means he's gonna get shot now. Like, someone's like a stormtrooper is gonna shoot him, and he's gonna be. We're gonna worry, but then he's gonna be all right because he's got the rondelle protected him, just like in Fellowship of the Ring with Frodo and the cave troll. But as she is,
that shit traumatized me.
Oh, it traumatized me as a kid. I was like, I thought he can't be dead. He's the main guy. He's got to hold the ring. No one can hold the ring. Don't give it to Boromir.
I had no idea about any of it, so I genuinely thought he
was good. It's so good. Yeah,
it still gets me, even though I know what happens.
You're just giving me like this whole thing has just prompted a Fellowship of the Ring flashbacks, and I need to just move on before I start crying. But as she is forging this new piece of armor, just like with Din in season 1, we get some flashbacks to Order 66, the night that the Jedi were basically exterminated, like murdered en masse by the clone troopers, their former allies, who, you know, we know now that they were under the influence of the inhibitor chips, but it's still a grim sight to see, like all of these poor Jedi just being mown down. And, you know, you kind of get the sense that it's the surprise and the shock of these clones that they trusted with their lives, in a sense, just like coming after them. But we hear a certain line as they are escorting Grogu to an elevator, get him to Kelleran.
Yes.
And that kind of prompted something in my head. I was like, Kelleran, I've heard that name before. And at first I thought,
when they said Kelleran, I was like, there's no fucking way they're going.
Sadly, those Jedi don't make it. One of them is cut down as she's coming into the elevator with Grogu. So there's a little bit of suspense as the elevator lowers, and then the doors pop open, and in walks Ahmed freaking Beq as
Turn of the King,
as Jedi Master Kelleran Beq, the sabered hand himself from Jedi Temple Adventure. I just like, I would never have called that this character would be the one that saved Grogu, because like I'd heard of Kelleran Beq, I knew about Jedi Temple Adventure. I never watched any of the episodes because it was like
I just kind of thought 2 episodes of Jedi Temple Channels, and they were really good.
Exactly.
Didn't continue with it.
Yeah, like I just thought like it's so ancillary. I don't need to watch this, and it turns out actually kind of did need to watch it because like here he is, and it's just, as someone who just like grew up loving Jar Jar and just being so frustrated with the way that character was received and the general misconceptions around his character, and just like hearing about like just how awful just how badly it affected Ahmed Best, like to the point where he even considered suicide because of that kind of reception. It was just such a heart-wrenching thing to like hear, and just to see him be so warmly embraced by parts of the fandom now, and to like see him come back as this character who's like so capable, and who is the one who saves Grogu, who basically like, it's such a fitting thing because thematically like his character was all about like safeguarding children, guiding younglings through their trials, and here he is guiding Grogu through a literal trial, like saving him, fending off clone troopers with 2 freaking lightsabers. What a badass
hand. That was so good.
We got to see why he's called that. Like, and no one was exaggerating. That man can move with a lightsaber. That was awesome stuff. So yeah, it made my heart swell to see Ahmed just like show up, and he looked like he was having like an awesome time. And I just feel like this is the apology to Ahmed Best that I feel like he deserved, and I feel like we as the fandom have just been, and Lucasfilm in general, have just been waiting to offer him, to say, look, this is the kind of love you deserve, Ahmed. We are all here with you. We love you. We respect you. And here's like such an awesome thing for you to contribute. Awesome way for you to contribute to the legacy of the ongoing story of Star Wars.
I can't wait to hear about all the behind the scenes stuff.
I know. It's gonna be fantastic to see that behind the scenes. And
exactly.
And thank you for saying the apology from Star Wars to him. Not like some media yesterday, and Candace made this really great short video on Geeky Waffle that some media were saying, "Oh, he redeemed himself." Like
exactly.
It's like redemption implies
never needed
that
any
there's
redemption.
Something like bad that he did. There's nothing bad that he did.
What's wrong with you guys? It's not.
Exactly. He never did anything wrong. Like there was no redemption needed. It's this isn't a redemption. It's an apology, if anything. It's a reckoning. It's a healing. It's a healing of of an injustice that was done. And I really hope we see more of him, to be honest, because like the whole, it's kind of left up in the air with that. So who knows if we'll see him again for Mandalorian. But to go back to the scene, so he fends off clone troopers, all of whom are voiced by Temuera Morrison, which was great. I know. He said he wanted to do the voices, and it's just so good to like see him like just like hear his voice coming out of the clones again, just to like see them all. Like it was really cool, and I'm pretty sure these were practical clones as well, just like with Obi-Wan, and they look so good as well. They've just found such a great way, as my co-host Jake said, like back when we were covering Obi-Wan, like they done such a great job of translating the armor despite this kind of weird proportions that came with the CGI. But they look great. We got more than one type this time. We got the 501st, we got the plain white clones, and we got the
red
and
ones.
and the Coruscant Guard. That was just really cool. Like my brother is a huge fan of clone troopers, and like I remember him like looking over at me as we were watching the episodes. He's like, I wanted clone troopers, but not like, but I have mixed feelings because like they're there and they look awesome, but they're also the bad guys, and they're trying to kill Grogu, and he's got you go ahead.
No, sorry. I think the placement of this flashback right after the last episode where we had the Persian part, that he wants to keep pursuing the cloning, investigate, research and such, is like, here's the reason why the New Republic thinks this is not good. Exactly. And we see it because we see Order 66, and we are also watching, of course, The Bad Batch, where we see, these are all the implications of doing cloning. That's why it's not the best idea. So I like how kind of comes full circle from one episode to the other. Maybe, of course, it's a side story or whatnot, but it's part of what is the Mandalorian at the end of the day.
Yeah, like the it's definitely kind of like, I feel like that more than the main story, if anything, drives the story forward, because like it really opens up like what we're seeing, really what we could see going forward. Like, you know, we get this awesome chase where Kelleran Beq like mounts a bark speeder with the little sidecar, which is also from like Clone Wars, which I love, and he just takes off with Grogu, and they're like flying like away from the Jedi Temple burning in the background, which is both heartbreaking but also kind of beautiful to see. And they're just like having this like intense chase, like being pursued by a freaking Republic gunship, which was insane. I love those things. So like this whole sequence just kind of felt like a love letter to the prequels and fans of the prequels. And I really appreciated it for what it was. Like we get a brief shot of that mountaintop from the last episode when they go into Monument Square, and then he manages to evade the Republic gunships and lands on a platform next to a Nubian ship. Oh,
that was amazing.
Oh, it looks so cool. I love those things. Like I've had a Royal Starship toy since I was like 6, and I just love the sleek design. It's very like, I feel like with a lot of the ship design that you could almost describe a kind of masculine quality to the way the ships are like very angular, very hard edge. And Naboo, what I love about so many of the Naboo starships is that they have this kind of feminine, like sleek quality to them. Like just the way they're designed, it's very much the opposite of the usual kind of aesthetic you get from Star Wars. And I feel like that kind of says a lot about the fact that Din is flying a Naboo starfighter. It kind of shows maybe that he is now developing a more kind of nurturing instinct around Grogu. Like he's getting more in touch with that kind of part of himself. But Kelleran lands. Exactly, it's like poetry. It rhymes exactly. So Kelleran lands next to the ship, like just in the nick of time, gets in there as like these Naboo royal guards like fend off the clone troopers, which is very interesting that these are his allies, because you know he could be going anywhere as he flees and takes off. And like there's also, I've got to mention the V-wings that fly in after him, which is just so cool. Like there's just, again, this is a love letter to the prequels.
As a stand-in for ties is so good.
Yeah.
Like
but
I noticed it in the newest Bad Batch episode.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, these feel like TIE fighters, but they're not. They're one of my favorite ships. They're V-Wings. I hate this.
Yeah, they're so cool. Like it was just really cool to see them kind of, like I said during our Bad Batch recaps with Andrew, when I said that like I feel like they're really getting their due here, like when they weren't previously, because we didn't get to see a lot of them in Revenge of the Sith, and now we're seeing them in animation, like getting in dogfights, and we got to see them in action here in The Mandalorian. So if ever briefly, so that's really cool. So they jump into hyperspace, and that is when the flashback ends. So the kind of question is now, where were they going? Like the obvious answer is Naboo probably, but like I feel like they could be going anywhere conceivably. Like considering the fact that the ship is probably going to get reported, I feel like the smart thing would be to go somewhere else. But on the other hand, I really want them to go to Naboo, because like that planet is beautiful, man.
I need to see Ahmed Best and I need to see Kelleran Beq and Jar Jar Binks interact.
I know. That would be fantastic. When he said, I'm coming with some friends, and I stood the Nubian, he's like, I didn't think of Padme. Padme was crying by the window at that moment. Exactly. But I thought of Jar Jar, like, oh my God, that would be really cool.
Imagine if like Kelleran is like, he has to lay low and he doesn't want to draw attention to Grogu, so he just hands him off to Jar Jar. Like that would be so good. I would love that. I mean, you'd get 2 Ahmed Bests for the price of 1, and that would be fantastic. But also just like, again, like both Kelleran Beq and Jar Jar, they both symbolize how the franchise always kind of like tries to keep children in mind. Because like it's like George said, about Star Wars, it is a film for 12-year-olds. Like he was always adamant about that, about like how despite how dark the films sometimes get, despite how scary they can be and the themes they delve into, they've always had their intention set on like enrapturing the interests of children, and like it worked for a bunch of us. But like I love that Jar Jar and Kelleran Beq both symbolize that kind of commitment to that specific audience, and like how important that is, how important it is to have characters that are specifically like they're all about like shepherding the younger audience through the tough times. It's just it really is meaningful. So the flashback ends and we return, as I mentioned before, to the present, where the armorer gives Grogu that little rondel with the Mudhorn signet, which is just it's the most adorable thing. Exactly. And then we pick up with the Mandalorian hunting party pursuing the creature. So they get to the base of its nest, and we have a little campfire scene where they're all just sort of chilling, and then a rather awkward moment where they all have to eat, and then they all just like, and then Bo's like, how do I eat this food? And he's just like, oh no, you don't take your helmet off. You got to find a quiet space to take off your helmet. And then they all just like get up and just like walk off somewhere to like eat their food, which is just it was unintentionally hilarious, because I just have an image in my head now of each one of them just sort of like sitting in the dark, like awkwardly eating their food, like, this is the way.
This is the way, yeah. And that's one of the things that it's a little bit confusing about the creed, because it's like, have you removed your helmet? It's like, well, when I eat, I do. But it's like, yeah, basically it's, do not remove your helmet in front of other people, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of confusing, because you think, hey, how do you eat? And we've seen Din trying to eat like from just lifting it a little bit, and when Grogu or somebody else is there. But that was a nice touch, and especially from Bo-Katan asking him like, hey, how do you guys eat? And like, when you are in a place with other people, right? And I like how Paz, like, you're the leader, so you stay by the fire. And we could see her without the helmet, which was nice. I love the wig. So the more you see it.
It's such a good wig, like that they've got for Katie Sackhoff. It looks so seamless, and it just like it perfectly kind of lifts the look she had from the Clone Wars.
Just seeing helmetless Katie Sackhoff in Mandalorian armor is just so freaking cool.
It's just, it blows my mind every time we like see her like in that look. It's so cool. So it is kind of like considered an honor what Paz says to her, like, oh, you are the leader, you found the nest, so you get to sit by the fire. But it doesn't really, I feel like what's interesting about the scene is it doesn't play like it's a nice moment for Bo, because she's still on her own, and it kind of represents where she is at the moment, like where she has lost so much. She's lost her parents, her sister, her planet, her home city, like her whole, like even her people have kind of left her, and she's kind of like a stranger amidst this group.
A stranger in a strange land.
A stranger in a stranger land. I know, and that's good that you mentioned that, Donovan, because I love. I've read takes like people, but why she's mentioned her father like several times now. She hasn't mentioned Satine yet. But I have a theory. Is that it's the trauma, because last time she said, I accept this sword for my sister, for my clan, and for all Mandalore, and look how that ended up.
Exactly.
So it's all the weight.
Yeah, and you mentioned I saw a tweet that you did earlier, like where you mentioned like how that was the blade that killed her sister.
Exactly.
And it's like I feel like that's something that's really gone unmentioned. I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's like that's crazy, and it really kind of brings a whole new light into like her seeing Din with the weapon, because effectively, like, we know that Bo-Katan was like effectively she's like what we would call a pure blood Mandalorian. She's born into like the royal house of Mandalore. She's been raised on the planet, and it's in its modern customs. So she would be considered like an official Mandalorian, whereas Din is like a foundling. So to see someone who you could almost view as like an outsider to the culture wielding the weapon, and it's like the last time an outsider wielded the Darksaber, he killed her sister with it. And it's such a, I feel like there's so much emotional weight behind this weapon, like, which made kind of like Bo wielding it in chapter 18 like just so much more like powerful, and the fact that she was able to like bear the weight, whereas Din is still struggling to lift it. It's really interesting. And I feel like, I know some people have complained about like they've not brought up Satine yet. I feel like they're holding that back to emotionally devastate us when she finally mentions her sister. But yeah, so we then pick up the next morning. They all have to like go to stealth mode because they don't want to alert the creature and have it kill Ragnar. So they start scaling this cliff, which is like, I'm amazed that Paz, like I love Paz is a kind of a dick, and I feel like this episode is a little bit of a redemption for him. But like I've always loved his design, the kind of like, like he's got that kind of bruiser demeanor and like the whole, the unique design of his armor. I'm amazed he can move up the cliff in that thing. Like
I was surprised, to imagine all that weight, the jetpack, the armor, and be climbing. It's like, wow, guys.
It's a good thing there was no Mandalorians underneath him, because like if he fell, like that would be an instant KO for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like they get to the top of the nest and the creature isn't in sight, but there is a heat signature there, and Paz just kind of like he just rushes in straight away, and Bo's like, oh no, just wait. And then he just like turns around and snaps, he's my son. So, which is an interesting revelation. I kind of feel like a lot of the fandom, a lot of people picked up on this back in chapter 1, the way he was kind of looking on almost kind of like with pride at Ragnar, and just the similar designs of the helmet. So like, do you guys think this is his biological son or an adopted son of sorts, like with Din and Grogu?
That's a good. I would think his. I mean,
I was thinking adopted.
Yeah, that was my thought, really. But like again, we're still like, we don't know a huge amount about like how this rule kind of functions. Really, the whole taking off your helmet thing. Like, is that a thing you do? And I saw some discussion about it on Twitter of like how.
I've seen some discussion about like, okay, and how though the Mandalorian marriages work. And as somebody draw a really nice comparison, like with Orthodox marriages, where only your for the bride, only your husband can see you without the veil, you see your hair, something like that. I could imagine that's the way it works, but other than that, I mean, I assume maybe he said an adopted son, but that's an interesting question. I keep joking, like, they're better answer that question soon.
Because like if he is like Paz's biological son, then like that stands to reason that there's a mom, and it's like how would if he has a partner who's not Mandalorian, how would she feel about their child just being kind of like inducted into what is basically a cult? Like I do feel like the show has like a soft spot for the group as a whole, since it wants to bring all the Mandalorians together. But it's definitely, it's very much been set up as a cult of sorts that needs to maybe evolve out of its archaic ways. But like, it turns out it's not Ragnar in the nest. It's actually three little baby pterodactyl like creatures that are just like, they're weirdly adorable. I love how like they're both adorable and kind of scary, like the way they were just. I was a little worried for Paz that he was going to bite it right there, but instead he wisely like shields himself with some of the nest, and then the mother creature comes back and literally and just coughs up Ragnar like and dangles him over the over its babies, which very much, it's kind of gave me Bugs Life vibes with Hopper at the end. Although thankfully this scene went very differently. But Paz has the amazing idea of just flying straight at the creature's mouth, but the creature then just drops Ragnar, and then just like clamps its jaw around Paz, and we get this whole like crazy like aerial sequence where the rest of the hunting party have to just like go after the creature and try and save the father and son. There's that interesting moment when Bo gets caught by the creature's foot, and as she's falling, a pauldron of hers like flies off, which was just an interesting. It's an interesting metaphor for like where she is now, how she has been she feels she's losing pieces of herself, but also it sets up an interesting denouement at the end of the episode. But what do you know? Like Din, who's somewhat taken a backseat for this episode, he comes back in. He saves Ragnar just as Bo comes back and saves Paz, who somewhat ungracefully like smacks into the rock after just righting himself. I know, I laughed so much at that. Like, it was the humbling I feel like his character needed, because he has been such a he's been such an obstruction to Din, like in earlier episodes, like when he challenged him for the Darksaber. That was the whole reason Din got excommunicated from the Children of the Watch in the first place, which, to be fair, if that hadn't have happened, he wouldn't have needed Bo-Katan's help, and we wouldn't have like got the beginnings of what's hopefully a very fruitful relationship. But there's actually that kind of nice moment when Din flies back down with Ragnar, and Paz just like pulls him over to him with one arm as they're hanging on the wall. He's like, "Are you okay?" And he says, "I'm fine, Dad." And that actually kind of got me. I was like, "Oh, yeah, like you may be a pain in the neck sometimes, Paz, but you know what? You're not all bad." And I feel like that's kind of what this episode was doing mostly.
Yes, and I remember last episode at the end, I was like, this gif of Obi-Wan, like, you were supposed to bring balance to the Force. I was like, Dad, you were supposed to make Din take off his helmet, not to join him to Bo-Katan. But it is interesting from a point of view because, I mean, Din, we think, okay, he started as part of Children of the Watch, and slowly he's been on this journey of seeing, there's another Mandalorians who doesn't have to wear their helmets, but they're still Mandalorians.
Exactly.
But immediately we thought, that's gonna like flip a switch inside him, and F the Children of the Watch, but not necessarily. I mean, we know the journey; it's gonna take time, and I think by Bo-Katan, I mean, the place she is at, where you said she's all alone, he's lost her family, the Mandalore, her castle, and she's staying there. And actually, Katie Sackhoff joked, like, well, maybe she's hungry, maybe she needs a place to stay low, right? But
I mean, her castle did get blown up, so yeah.
Yeah, so I think for her, it's kind of like a way to get to know these people. She's just as cultists, but at the same time, for Din to see maybe to help Din, as you said, he's taking a backseat, but to help him to move towards to a position like maybe as a middle ground. Maybe I don't need to wear my helmet every day, stuff like that. So I thought it was interesting to see her. And like you said, he was the one who saved the child. However, she was the one who took the initiative, took her chip, planned the whole rescue mission. So of course she got the credit. I saw some Twitter people like, Din was the one who saved it. It's like, yeah, but
it's like, no, yeah, like she also saved Paz. Like she came in, she was the one kind of driving everything really, which was awesome because like, and I feel like her being part of the joining the Children of the Watch, if only on a temporary basis, most likely, is that she's getting a look at this part of her people who have like, because so many of the Mandalorians have sort of like embraced these older ways, these older traditions, like in the wake of like the Empire trying to like destroy them the way they did the Jedi, and I feel like Bo is having a crisis of faith of sorts, but I feel like what the show is doing is setting her up as an agent for change, like you said. Like I feel like she is going to help push the covert to maybe see things a different way. And if not anyone else in the covert, then at least Din. I feel like that's the reason for like pairing these two very closely together, because there may or may not be a romantic thing that develops between them. So, but I feel like on a symbolic level, she is there to like show him, as you said, there are all kinds of different Mandalorians, and just because they walk the way in a different respect, that doesn't mean they're any less Mandalorian. They all are like valid. They all are valid as Mandalorians, and maybe adhering to like ancient customs is not in fact the way. But they all come back to the cave where the armorer and everyone is waiting, along with Grogu, who the armorer just sort of has at her side. And I love that she has that. She's just like, again, like I said, she could be so cold. I was worried she was going to be really cold towards Grogu and just not be interested in him. But she almost seems kind of fond of the little guy. She's just like, come, Grogu. Like, there's just kind of like, I love the little bit of humor Emily Swallow put into that delivery. Really, like I should feel like I feel like we should shout out Emily Swallow as the armorer, because there is so much in her voice, the way she kind of communicates what could be a very kind of like dry and an interesting character. She I feel like she infuses with like a mystique where you want to learn more about her. And I feel like, I mean, there is that theory that she was part of Darth Maul's sect of Mandalorians that overran, which would be a wild thing. And it would also kind of explain why she's so keen on, nobody taking off their helmets, because if she took off hers, everyone would be like, oh, you were with the infidel Maul.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so they're all back there, and as you said, Bo-Katan gets all the credit that as she deserves, and the armorer is like, you have fulfilled the highest honor of the creed, saving a foundling. And Bo-Katan has a little quip at the ready of like, oh, we have 3 more foundlings for you to train. And they bring out the baby pterodactyl things, and I'm like, how did they fit on the
dragons
ship?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It reminds me, you know what, there's a Rebel Jail arc on the comics where Han and Luke ended up transporting a herd of nerfs inside. So it was like,
I forgot about that part of the arc. Oh my gosh.
It's the Jason Aaron comics.
Yeah.
I remember that. That's the Rebel Jail arc. That's so good. That's like really good. That's a really cool arc. I'm so glad you made that parallel.
That's one of my favorite. I think that's my favorite arc out of the 2015 run.
Yeah. Like I have the whole run collected.
Because of the Leia stuff.
Yeah.
So good.
That comic really did Leia justice as a character, I think.
That and the Scourgeon of Shu to run.
Oh,
see, that I haven't got to yet.
It's so good.
Yeah, I'm excited to
eventually
get to that.
There's so many good comic moments that I said, oh my, this is awesome. Like Leia facing Kira. Oh, that was...
Yeah, that was amazing. That whole sequence, the way that was written. Yeah, I was generally a little colder on War of the Bounty Hunters than other people, but I loved all the stuff with Kira. I was so happy they brought her back.
So behind on everything, I need to catch up.
Oh.
But like as you said, that meeting between Kira and Leia, incredible. Like just so well written. But yeah, hopefully Conor and I will be like more caught up on Star Wars comics eventually. I really want to get to the Scourging of Shooter Run. So like I kind of like that they adopted the three baby dragon things. Yeah, because it's like it's goofy like watching the Mandalorians just sort of like try and drag them out of the ship.
If they ride those things and they pull an Elzar man in like season 5 or whatever,
oh my god!
Imagine if Bo rides the Mythosaur and those things are like flanking her on the Mythosaur. It'd be just like Battle of the Bastards from Game of Thrones all over again, which that's the good kind of Game of Thrones we want to acknowledge, not the other kind.
not the season 8. No.
Yeah, no, like that. Yeah, like what's season 8? Yeah, I can't even remember. It's been stricken from my memory. But so the armorer, very observant. She notices that Bo has lost a pauldron, and she offers to make her a new one, which is very generous considering like the way she described Bo as a cautionary tale. But we have like our first like one-on-one scene between the armorer and Bo-Katan, and again, it was not what any of us I think had expected. We had expected a more standoffish, tense scene, if anything, but Bo is a lot more open to talking with this person.
I know.
Oh no, she gets gaslit, but
and again, like I mentioned today on Twitter, I love that I'm more favorable to weekly episodes rather than binge drop a whole season, because I think we have more time to like enjoy each episode. But one of the things that I don't like is all the discourse and the theories, and because sometimes a lot, and we all do it, right? But for example, everyone and their mothers last week, they were saying, oh no, she didn't say about the Mythosaur because she has that under her sleeve and she wants to like plot and whatnot. And we see here why she didn't say a word, because it's like if I come up saying, hey, I saw a dinosaur, everyone is going to say, really? Oh, cool. You had a vision. No.
Exactly. And we see that. We see that, like, she confesses, like, she asks the armorer, like, what would that mean if I saw a Mythosaur, as the armorer is, like, making her a new pauldron with the signet of the Mythosaur, which is just awesome. I love that Bo is kind of I feel like that pauldron kind of symbolizes how she's at risk of being swayed by the children of the Watch and maybe becoming something less special in terms of what she represents as a Mandalorian. But I feel like she still is hanging on to herself there, where like she asks the armorer like, oh, what would that mean if I saw one? And she's like, oh, well, you know, I would say you're very lucky. When you walk the way of the Mandalore, you see many things. And it's like, it is that thing like where Conor joked about like Bo-Katan gets gaslit. It is very much kind of like,
it's like, oh, you see like, many things.
You walk the way of the Mandalore.
Exactly. It's like, you know, she's like, I really did see one though. Like, but yes, it's like, the armorer's like, yes, no, I'm sure you did. No, but really, I did see one.
This is the way.
This is the way. It's like, it's the most, again, like I said, it's the most condescending use of that term ever.
Yeah.
And like it was like, we've had the coldest version, which was like said to Din when Din was like, the mines have all been destroyed, which obviously wasn't true, but like, I feel like the armorer is definitely humoring her there, but I also wonder if like that's going to be a thing that Bo now has to do. Like maybe she goes back to Mandalore because she wants to prove that there is a Mythosaur there. And I mean, my theory is that like they could run into some stuff going on there with the Empire, because I kind of get the sense the Empire isn't done with Mandalore, and that's why they kind of glassed the surface. They destroyed Sundari so that the Mandalorians would take off and they'd be free to like plunder the planet for its resources or whatever. But yeah, like this was we end overall with like the same kind of ending as last episode. That was a little repetitive, sure, but like overall I really liked a lot of the character stuff here. I feel like they're really setting us up to like take a massive step forward with the plot, with the main overarching plot threads next episode. And of course that whole Order 66 flashback with Kelleran Beq, Ahmed Best making a triumphant return.
Awesome. I loved how they place it as a parallel, because you see, like you said earlier, the Mandalorians are like the Jedi in a lot of things, but you see that they were protecting a jungling, which became a foundling. But at the same time, you see the Jedi with the junglings are like the Mandalorians with the foundling. So it was an interesting parallel to have in the same episode. And also, I just realized that Grogu and Bo-Katan had a new piece of armor this episode. So all the family have been, the armorer has been doing pieces of armor for the whole family. So I like that.
And they both have the same kind of like color scheme as Din, which is really interesting. And it kind of shows that these three characters are now sort of being bonded together in a sense by like not so much by the Children of the Watch, but like by the Mandalorian creed, as it were. I was almost kind of surprised that like when during the armor building sequence that we didn't get a flashback with Bo, because like usually when that happens, when the the steel is being pressed, there's a flashback. We got it with Mando, we got it with Grogu, which is that was in itself a cool parallel. But like I wonder if that represents the fact that Bo has kind of sealed that part of herself off, like she's walled off her emotions to that part of her past, like the loss of her parents, her sister, like there was that theory that the armorer was exactly, like there was that theory that the armorer was her sister, which I feel like is now defunct, because I feel like she would have recognized the voice.
What account was that from? Pong Krellstans or whatever?
I don't know.
It's so stupid.
I don't know, maybe, or like you said, it's really sealed, because I can think, of course, that when Satine died, but what about the Purge? I mean, we don't know yet how she lost that dark saber. And I'm saying, for a minute, I was telling, so like one of friends, like, what if Corky died in the Purge? It's like, they were like, no, don't get there. It's like, but I mean, I don't know.
We still need him around. We need Corky Kenobi to be canon, please. Yes. Like, come on. Like, that's just saying, Lucasfilm, like, if you really are like still doing a Kenobi season 2, or like you want to do a season 3, maybe maybe put Corky in there. Like maybe make it canon. You know, I mean, off the top of my head, have Corky go after Darth Maul for revenge, and he somehow tracks Obi-Wan down, and like that's the explanation for why. You know, you throw Kira in the mix, and that's how Maul winds up on Malachor. There's that's I could watch a whole series of that basically.
Same. I would definitely love to have Emilia Clarke back in live action as Kira. So yeah,
we need it for sure. But the only other thing, the last thing I'll mention before we close the episode out is that theory on Twitter that Bo-Katan might not in fact be Satine's sister, that she might actually be, because there has been that talk recently about Bo-Katan's age, because everyone was like, oh, how is she not showing visible signs of aging, given that she should be like in her 70s or something? And
it's Bo-Katan.
Bo-Katan is like the Paul Rudd of
of
a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah,
exactly. She just she doesn't age. She just constantly
you know what?
looks awesome.
That's what's one of the things that has made me cautiously optimistic about a romantic entanglement, because they've been really, of course, it's amazing that we have Katie Sackhoff. And at the beginning, I thought, well, but wait a minute, what about the ages considering she was in the Clone Wars, but not? But I think that all these efforts to say, okay, she was kind of on her teen, like around Ahsoka, same age, maybe Anakin's at most. So the difference between her and Din Djarin, the age difference is not that bad. So that's what I think. Okay, I'm being cautiously optimistic, but I've seen that effort to well, she's not that old. She's kind of 47, 51. Yeah. So
she's very much. I feel like they've placed her in age like very similar to like what the age Katie Sackhoff is currently, and I feel like it's a change for the better anyway, because it kind of explains that why she kind of fell in with Death Watch, because she was very, you could almost say she was kind of impressionable at that age, and it took seeing Paz Vizsla murdered in front of her by someone he had chosen to ally himself with, that was kind of like a wake up call for her, like, oh, maybe I should not be just like blind. I shouldn't have blindly stepped into this.
It was kind of xenophobic, though.
Yeah.
It was
kind of
xenophobic.
Like, and I feel like
as much as I love the delivery of the line, "No outsider will ever rule Mandalore," like, come on.
Like, this is the thing, and this is why I feel like Din. It makes so much sense to give Din the Darksaber, because, like, imagine if he and Bo-Katan end up ruling Mandalore together.
Oh yes.
I want them to go all the way with at least with Din having to be the ruler of Mandalore, because like. As much as I've like joked that it could, I've joked like off air that it could be like that they could wind up making Boba Fett do it or something, since he's already had like practice as a daimyo. But I love the idea of Din sort of going from like being an inauspicious bounty hunter to like ruling over this whole like civilization. It kind of gives me like the end of the Disney Sword and the Stone vibes, where like, I don't know anything about being king,
or even Lord of the Rings. He's could be an Aragorn. I mean, they did the entrance in the Return of the Mandalorian, which was literally Aragorn opening those doors. It's like,
I just got that.
You can
oh my god!
that.
It literally was Aragorn's entrance. Like he parts the plastic,
double doors.
The plastic, just like Aragorn parts the double doors. That's amazing. Yeah. So the reason I brought up Bo-Katan's age is to ask that kind of bring up that theory that I believe you tweeted about, Noor-Hal, about like maybe she is in fact Satine's secret daughter, and they hushed it up and she was like the sister, which I feel like is a bit of a stretch, but it would be kind of nuts, and that would potentially mean she is like the offspring of Obi-Wan and Bo-Katan and Satine, which is like that's a wild theory.
That's too much.
Yeah, it would be a lot of, and
it would be
too much.
I'm a quirky Kenobi.
Oh yeah,
like,
same.
Like yeah, definitely, I'm up for it. But I don't know. I feel like hesitant. I don't think they're going to want to. I mean, they didn't do it. They could have done Rey Kenobi, to be honest. Don't get me started on that.
Don't get me started either.
And
we'll be here for hours.
And they kind of like, no, they didn't want to stain the image of the perfect Jedi that Obi-Wan Kenobi was. So I think I'm surprised. Maybe they Filoni tomorrow. Hey, Corky Kenobi is back. It's like, wow. maybe he surprised me, but yeah, but maybe let's see what's gonna be.
That would be super cool. I mean, yeah, I'd love to see Corky Kenobi made canon, but yeah, I feel like we should I feel like that kind of brings us to the conclusion of this episode. Like overall, like what were your overall thoughts about the episode?
Well, I was pleasantly surprised to see, and I'm not, like you said, I don't think Bo-Katan is gonna be like becoming Children of the Watch full time, and this might be temporary, or she's going to be a bridge for them because she's learning about them and spending time with them. Is like, well, they're not terrible people. Okay, their rule of you take off your helmet, you're not more a Mandalorian. Yeah, that's kind of mean, guys. But I think it could be like a bridge for her, or for Din, or for both of them, to help them. Okay, if they're going to recover Mandalore, if they're going to go back to Mandalore, now that they find out it's not poison, but how that's gonna work out, and maybe they're gonna switch their beliefs or adapt. But I like I said, I enjoyed the parallel between the flashback, which is the Jedi protecting their young, with the Mandalorians rescuing their young. So I enjoy it. Of course, yeah, there's still this conversation like, but the plot, and you have to put some like steps towards the goal part, like the journey that you're gonna follow.
Exactly.
So I think I enjoyed it, and of course, to see Bo-Katan interacting with Grogu and with Din it's kind of, I mean, and like you said, maybe it's not gonna be a romantic thing, but them as interacting like a family, like a found family, which is one of the main topics of Star Wars. Like, belonging you're sick is not behind you, it is ahead. So hey, I'm up for it.
That's a great comparison with Mars Kanata's line to Rey. So yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. I think I really like the investment in character that we got this week. I loved the Jedi flashbacks, the Order 66 flashbacks with Kelleran Beq. I'm intrigued to see if we get any more of that as the season goes on, or if they're going to save that for season 4. But Conor, what were your overall like thoughts like to close out the episode?
It was solid. I think I've probably said it before. Like, Mandalorian it's good. It's not one of my top Star Wars shows because, like, I've found out over the past 3 years or so, mainly because of Fallen Order and the High Republic, I really gravitate towards the Jedi and the Force. If you really want to get a case of that, go check out our previous episode where we rank our top 5 Star Wars stories of 2022. And
yeah,
some of mine were surprising to you all.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, solid.
Connor's for the record, Noor-Hal, all of Connor's top 5 picks for Star Wars 2022 completely threw me. He did not pick at all the stuff I thought he was going to. But yeah, so that kind of concludes...
To say the least, I think it was, Don, Jake, and Andrew. You all picked Andor as 1, right?
Oh, no, I picked Obi-Wan as my number 1.
Okay, yeah. I put Andor at 5.
Yeah.
And my number 1 was this freaking comic.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Obviously not the same arc, but like the Jedi's end arc, like issues, I think 11 through 15 of the High Republic.
For the people who are listening, that is, Conor is referring to the High Republic comics by Cavan Scott that follow Keith Trennis.
So good.
They were so freaking good. I if not for the other stuff I'd put on my list, I would have probably put them in my top 5. Damn, I should have made them an honorable mention.
Listen, man, Star Wars literature, it's just it clears not every time, but like it's pretty darn good. It's been darn good.
Yeah, no, it has. It has been pretty fantastic.
Even though I'm behind on pretty much all of it.
Same. I have, from a certain point of view, like literally sitting next to me as we're recording this.
I still have not read those.
Wow.
I very much want to. I want to get this finished before the Return of the Jedi one comes out.
Jedi, yes.
Yeah. So I think now I can feel like now that we have gotten that like unexpected plug for our top 5 video out of the way, we can now wrap this episode up. So Noor-Hal, once again, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to talk to you about about this episode and about just everything to do with the Mandalorian in general. Where can the good people find you on social media?
Oh, no, and thank you so much, guys, for having me. It's been great to be here talking about The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 4. Yeah, you can all find me on Twitter. Well, it's still a thing, at Noor-Hal, and where I have my link tree with my bio with different sites and pursuits. But all the other, like Instagram is Noor-Hal Music, TikTok, Noor.Hal, and yeah, but this pretty much Twitter. Check my bio. There's all my different, and also check the Geeky Waffle collab. I often a panelist with the talking about Star Wars as well. So yeah, definitely there you can find me there.
Yeah, I loved listening. For the record, I loved listening to your Andor recaps and the Obi-Wan stuff. It was really cool. I definitely need to start listening to Waffles After Dark, because like some of the conversations you guys set up for that, I'm really intrigued to like hear the full versions of that for sure. But Conor, where can the good people find you?
Twitter at DepaBanana, Instagram at ConmanJFO, even though I don't really use it all that much. I co-host not only here, as you can tell, I also co-host at Knights of the Nerd Republic, part of this. I don't know what I almost just said. Knights of the Nerd Republic, part of the Nerd Academy Podcast Network. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're probably on there. And you can find us on our website, www.nerdacademypodcast.com. I also write Star Wars trivia questions and co-host over at Star Wars in a Galaxy Epic Confrontations. It's a fan trivia league that I'm a part of with that guy.
I constantly do the same. Yeah. Oh, look, I just did it now.
No, so
there we go.
Don, I, and Eli, and maybe a few other future writers, we all write trivia questions, and we have a lot of cool matches already planned. A lot of cool matches that already happened. One particular match that we have in the pipeline is the rematch between Bombad Cast Zone, Scotty J. Rowe, and my co-host, Jared the Dark Jedi, April 10th, live on the Bombad Cast. I want to say in like the evening. I don't know for sure though. Yeah. I'm trying to think of like what to say for that, because like we don't have the trailer here. But you can find all of the past matches that we've recorded over on the Star Wars in a Galaxy YouTube channel. And then SW Editor, IG.com/fiction. I work with a talented group of creative people to create a connected universe of Star Wars fan stories. We have about 19 stories published. I don't know off the top. I think it's 19. I can't remember. I don't have any published yet. I have some in the works, all dealing with Cal Kestis, unsurprisingly. So I'm really going to have to do some like flippity flops with battle scars and whatever Survivor does. One story I do have that's coming out soonish. I don't know when. I got to talk to Austin. It's called A Knight's Welcome. It is set. I don't know when it's set at this point, because there's some stuff in the story trailer that makes me think, oh, this could change some stuff for me. It'll be set some time in the 5 years.
Yeah, like sometime after Jedi Fallen Order.
Sometime. Maybe even after Survivor, depending on what happens. Who knows? But it's the short synopsis I'll give is a fateful encounter with a mysterious being leads Cal Kestis to discover secrets of the Force he once thought impossible. It's a real short read. It's like a 6-page script. So I don't know when that's coming out, but when it does, I'll plug it here.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much,
Where can
Conor.
everyone find you and the podcast?
Exactly. So you can find me on Twitter at Donovan Mead, where I tweet about Star Wars, Marvel, DC occasionally, some Doctor Who stuff, and very occasionally politics. Fun time in the UK at the moment. But you can also find me on TikTok and Hive, under the same handle at Donovan McComish. I actually have a TikTok in the pipeline that I am going to upload once we are done. You can also find me on Instagram at Donovan_McComish, and like Conor just said, you can find me along with Andrew and our other co-host Jake on sweditor@ig.com. My most recent article that I wrote concerning Star Wars was about Obi-Wan and the possible directions for season 2, which may have included the Darth Maul subplot that I mentioned. You could, and we also, as Conor said, we also do Star Wars editor fiction, SWEF. I have written one story that came out in June last year. It's called Scars of War. The brief synopsis I will give for that is that it stars a clone trooper called Blister, who is lying low in the Outer Rim 5 years after Order 66, and during his time on the Outer Rim planet of Kivo, he encounters a Jedi survivor named Shar Kun, the niece of Plo Koon, Jedi Council member. So, if you like Star Wars and trauma, then I encourage you to give it a read. You can also find the podcast on Twitter, as well as we have a TikTok account as well. You can find it at For the Repub Pod on Twitter. As Andrew recently announced a couple of weeks ago, we now have opened a merch store on TeePublic, so you can go over and check that out. We have the link in our Twitter profile. You can also find us on YouTube. We have an official For the Republic podcast YouTube account. Andrew is currently putting together a video essay about Kelleran Beq. I can't wait to see what he has to say about the return of this of Ahmed Best, and how meaningful that is to us as Star Wars fans. You can also find us on Spotify, Apple Music, pretty much anywhere you can choose to listen to podcasts. You can find us there. So thank you guys all for listening, and this is the way.